Good morning and welcome to your TVC news here in Clarence-Rockland. It's Friday the 22nd of January. My name is Thomas Stockting and thank you for joining me as we bring you your latest regional update. In your headlines this week, how the Pfizer vaccine delay affects Eastern Ontario. Le Centre d'accueil Roger Séguin receives their first dose. Winter activities and local ice conditions. A formal acknowledgement of Black History Month. And the latest from the City Council. Schools within the Eastern Ontario Health Unit's region will not be resuming in-class learning again on Monday the 25th of January, as was originally planned. At the time of recording this broadcast, the opening date had not yet been announced, and we will bring you your updates on this story on TVC News over the coming weeks. The delay in the availability of the Pfizer vaccine has been making headlines across the globe. The local long-term care facilities started receiving their first doses in the last 2 weeks, and Dr. Roumeliotis from the EOHU has some reassuring words concerning the vaccine's availability locally.
As of last week, including Lac-Osasne, we actually administered 1,200 vaccines. Dès samedi, nous avons administré 1,200 vaccins. And this week, we were told that we're getting another tray, but not next week. So we had one supply short, and so it might delay a bit of our continuing of our efforts. However, we are going to be well in advance. I know that we've now receiving double the shipments in February, and so we're going to be able to make up with it and finish off the first round of long-term care homes as well as retirement homes, high-risk retirement homes by February 15th, which is the deadline that they gave us. Donc, au niveau des vaccins, comme je l'ai dit tantôt, nous avons vacciné jusqu'à date 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 maisons de longue durée et on commence dès cette semaine encore parce qu'on vient de recevoir une deuxième livraison du vaccin. Mais le problème arrive qu'on était supposé de recevoir une autre livraison de 1000 doses, 1100 doses. En effet, c'est 950, mais on pourrait avoir 1011 à peu près. Mais ils ont annulé à cause que Pfizer a diminué la production pour quelques semaines. Donc, ça va reprendre la semaine après. Et en février, on va avoir deux livraisons avec double de montant 2 fois. Donc, avec tout ça, on va être capable de finir de la première dose à toutes les maisons de longue durée, incluant les résidents, les travailleurs et les visiteurs essentiels et aussi les maisons de retraite qui sont en haut risque dans notre région. So with this, we'll be in a position to having vaccinated everybody by the early February and then work on dose number 2 and so on and moving to the next stage depending on the vaccine supply. Again, all these predictions are done based on Moderna and Pfizer supply. Hoping that we can get another vaccine approved shortly that will add to the numbers that we have. So this is a bit of a setback that we've had, again, because of Pfizer's decision in Belgium to decrease their production temporarily so they can increase their yearly output to double. So in the long run, it's a good thing, but in the short run, we will have that. But again, we will be monitoring the situation very carefully, and our plan is to go with the first dose first. So, and then the second. Donc, nous allons surveiller. Si on a des surprises, très bien, on va avoir d'autres doses. L'important, c'est qu'on va le suivre, on va faire nos maisons de longue durée et les maisons de retraite dans l'échéance qu'on avait. Et donc, ça, c'est des bonnes nouvelles. C'est pas de bonnes nouvelles. En effet, je pense qu'on va le faire. Et en espérant qu'il va y avoir bientôt un troisième vaccin qui va être approuvé dans le Canada. So going back to the question now that was asked, that's why I forgot about the vaccines. And again, I want to say that even if we have the vaccines in place, again, our public health measures are still in place until way into the spring, summer, until we have enough people vaccinated. And so, just want to keep that in mind. Donc, il faut dire aussi qu'on vaccine des gens, mais on n'a pas assez du monde pour dire, on n'a pas vacciné assez déjà encore pour dire, oui, on commence à diminuer les précautions. Au moins, on va avoir ça jusqu'au mai, juin, avant qu'on commence à diminuer les restrictions. Et ça dépend combien de personnes on vaccine. So going back to this one here, so the question is, what are you going to do about the second dose? I can tell you that vaccines that we've seen, there are some timelines. There's a give and take in them. The product monograph is there as a guidance, and strictly speaking, for medication, sometimes we have leeway of going what's called off-label. But what we're trying to do now is we're working with that number. I'm also a microbiologist, so I believe that delaying a bit won't make that much of a difference because I understand understanding the immunology and all that. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to work within that window and try to get the dosages on as close as possible to the maximum, to the date that the pharmaceutical companies have given.
Keeping to vaccines, there is some great news for the municipality of Clarence-Rockland as the residents of Le Centre d'accueil Roger Séguin received their first doses this week. This means that all long-term care facilities under the jurisdiction of the EOHU have now received their first round of vaccinations, and the second one is expected within the next 4 weeks. Staff in some long-term care facilities, such as Roger Séguin, unfortunately are yet to be vaccinated due to the shortage in supply. We will be bringing you more on this story and some interviews within the coming weeks. And there was further good news for long-term care facilities here locally in Prescott and Russell, as the Local Employment Services Centre confirmed that 40 personal support workers were finishing their trainings and certificates this week. We'll be bringing you more on that story soon as well. The provincial restrictions, which came into place last week, have been causing quite the stir. Though the more recent message to stay at home when possible is quite clear, there are many contradictions within the phrasing, and when speaking last Thursday, Dr. Roumeliotis attempted to clear a few of these things up.
Okay, so now I just wanted to just clarify a few things with regards to the new measures that came out. We've had a lot of questions about can I go out, should I go out, and what is essential, what's not essential. Really, we need to use our common sense, and in terms of what we need to go out for, really is essentially the essential. So really, going to get food in and out, or picking up curbside food or whatever you do, going to get medical care, go to the pharmacy, pick up medication, perhaps see a vulnerable individual, and I'll go to that a bit later, and obviously exercise. I think that it's important that people get their exercise, and the parks and skating rinks have been open. They've been left open as compared to the March one, just to ensure that people can go out and exercise. But again, respecting limits and respecting those gatherings and so on. Donc, au niveau des questions que nous avons, en effet, c'est vraiment de rester chez vous, sauf pour des fins essentielles. Autrement dit, si vous avez besoin d'avoir des services médicaux, aller chercher les médicaments ou les aliments, ou aller visiter une proche que vous prenez soin pour. Et l'exercice, en effet, vous pouvez aller marcher autour de votre maison. Il faut utiliser, il faut que ce soit logique. Disons qu'à chaque fois qu'on veut sortir, est-ce que c'est essentiel ou pas? Si ce n'est pas essentiel, restez chez vous. Donc, c'est la seule moyenne qu'on pourrait diminuer les rassemblements et le partagement, si vous voulez, du virus qu'on ne veut pas. On ne va pas partager ni transmettre ce virus. So the only way really is to stay home. The other question that we've had was why, if you're not allowed to why you have the 5 limit for outdoors. Essentially, it's not to promote people getting in groups, but we recognize as people live alone, and they can maybe walking in the neighborhood and they might see a friend or a neighbor. They just want to say hello, physical distancing, but you don't want to do this on a regular basis, and you don't want to have 50 people there. If you happen to see them, make sure that you take the proper precautions. Donc, au niveau de règles pour pas plus que 5 personnes qui pourront être ensemble à l'extérieur, je pense que la raison pour laquelle c'était fait, c'est parce que c'est vraiment, on voit les personnes qui ils ont besoin de sortir, ils sont isolés. Si on demeure seul ou un couple seul, il veut aller prendre une petite marche, si on voit un voisin ou un ami, on pourrait lui parler, on pourrait, mais surtout distancer, etc. C'est pour ça qu'on a mis le 5 pour ça. Donc, on reçoit toujours les questions vis-à-vis ce type de choses. Chose que je dis en monde, c'est que c'est pour 28 jours. Si on continue à faire ce qu'on devrait faire, rester chez nous le plus possible, on va vraiment voir une diminution de nos cas. So I've been telling people that it's for the next 28 days, and if all things go well, if we continue, we'll be seeing a downshift in those cases.
As we face further restrictive measures, you can still make the most of the outdoors and enjoy some fresh air. The city of Clarence-Rockland's municipal parks will remain open during the new province-wide stay-at-home order, with increased surveillance by municipal law enforcement to ensure all sanitary measures are followed. If you're looking for some winter activities, you can head to the Alain Potvin and Jules Samur parks for sledging. You can go to La Vigne Natural Park for snowshoeing, and most parks are open if you want to throw your skates on. Although these parks remain open, Mayor of Clarence-Rockland, Mr. Guy Desjardins, warned that if cases rise again, the region will have no other choice than to close them down.
I'm glad to see people are respecting the numbers at rinks and announces number 8. I'm glad to see people are respecting the numbers at rinks and hills for sliding. And I hope it will continue, because if we can't respect those rules with the distance and the mask, we will be obliged to close the rinks and the hills, which would be a shame because they're interesting for all of the children out there and having fun. But please keep respecting them. During the Christmas holidays, some days our numbers were as high as the Ottawa ones. So we have to be careful. It has no pity. It'll hit on anybody, and let's keep safe. Je suis content de voir que les numéros, les chiffres restent pareils pour les patinoires et les glissades. Et continuez à respecter. On sera obligé de fermer les patinoires et les glissades. Et puis, ce serait malheureux parce que c'est un des sports dehors qui est très, surtout avec la belle neige fraîche. Les chiffres durant les fêtes ont monté aussi haut que ceux d'Ottawa. Il faut réaliser que dans Prescott-Russell, on est 85 000 et Ottawa est 1 million. Fait que ça veut dire que nos chiffres sont beaucoup plus hauts que ceux d'Ottawa. Alors, il faut faire attention. Gardez vos distances. Continuez à garder votre masque. Je sais que tout le monde fait un effort. C'est long, mais il faut être patient. Merci.
Another immensely popular activity in the region during these frigid months is ice fishing. If you make your way along the Ottawa River, huts are already visibly sitting upon the ice. However, the conditions may not be favourable just yet, as Taylor Campbell from South Nation Conservation told us.
We're here to talk a little bit about the ice conditions on the various bodies of water around the Clarence-Rockland municipality and Prescott-Russell region, which obviously falls massively under the South Nation Conservation's capture. The ice conditions obviously lead to a very popular activity around here, which is ice fishing. Could we talk about the conditions at the moment? Because I feel like we've had a relatively mild spell of winter here, a lot of temperatures above freezing. So what's the ice looking like out on various bodies of water, especially the Ottawa River bank area that's around Clarence-Rockland?
Well, our staff have noted over the past few weeks that ice conditions and freezing over of the water has been very sporadic. So we are reminding residents that although winter is definitely fully upon us, it's very cold, that you should remain cautious when venturing out onto the ice. Ice thickness is not usually uniform, and it can vary depending on outside temperature. water current and flows. So certainly on a larger body of water like the Ottawa River, there are more current and flows than on a smaller body of water, and so that could definitely impact ice conditions at the moment.
And in terms of when you're heading out onto the ice, figuring out what's thicker and maybe what's not, I mean, the experienced ice fisherman watching this right now will probably know that as general knowledge. But say if I wanted to go and step out onto that ice, do you have any sort of tips as to locate which direction to not head in?
Well, as I said, ice formation is very sporadic, and it's not usually uniform across a whole body of water. So we do recommend that ice should be at least 15 to 20 centimeters thick, for skating, walking, pond hockey, and even thicker for snowmobiles. And a good way to tell is the color of the ice, which can be an indication of its strength. So typically we would recommend that ice is clear blue in color, and that would be the strongest ice. Ice that is cloudy white or gray in color can be unsafe, as it's an indication of water being present in the ice. So it is always good to be prepared as well for any worst case scenario while going out onto the ice, so that, letting others know where you're going, when you plan on returning, wearing appropriate clothing, bringing the proper safety equipment, including a life jacket, a cell phone, an ice pick and throw rope is always recommended as well.
And I mean, like, it's so hard to tell because the temperatures are now dropping into the minus double digit numbers for a few days. So obviously that ice formation is going to pick up. But do you reckon that the ice fishing season, the pond skating season is going to be sort of a little bit shorter this year?
Well, it very well could be. Ice fishing huts are permitted to be on the waterways in this area, according to the provincial guidelines, until March 15th. And depending on weather conditions, the season could go well until then. But at the moment, I mean, it's going to be really dependent on weather conditions, snow cover, and water current and flows, also underneath of the ice.
Grand, yeah. So in terms of the last couple of years as well, have you at South Nation Conservation seen a little bit of a change in pattern over the course of winters? I mean, don't want to throw out the buzz phrase global warming, but I mean, this is my second winter in Canada personally, and I was told I got off lightly last year and it was mild, and it doesn't feel much different this year for me personally. Maybe I'm used to it.
I'd have to go back and look at that data year over year. I don't have that in front of me at the moment. But anecdotally, what I can say is last winter was mild. This year seems to be similar, but I have noticed ice fishing huts on the river in the Castleman area. So people are getting out on the ice, and also anecdotally, just with the current situation, more people are wanting to get out and take advantage of some of those opportunities, getting out ice skating or playing pond hockey due to the current lack of recreational activities that are permitted in the province. So again, we're just out here to remind people to be safe on the ice. If you want to get out ice fishing or if you want to go skating, just be sure to check how thick it is, check the color of the ice, be prepared always for a worst case scenario. It's always wise to check in with maybe some ice fisher friends of yours or other anglers or local authorities as to what the conditions are at the moment. And it's also, we would also recommend that parents explain some of those dangers to their children. That no matter how safe or frozen or fun that the ice may look, that it's never usually a good idea to follow a friend onto ice or a pet, as that ice could be potentially dangerous. So that's something we would also recommend that parents take a moment just to explain those dangers to their children.
Absolutely. I think it's fantastic that message gets across, as you say, with so many more people seeking outdoor activities that are a little bit safer during this time, as obviously you are not allowed to be cooped up inside with a variety of people. You and I had a conversation a couple months back when we were looking at higher water levels in the Ottawa River during the autumn period. We mentioned as well the fact that looking at the flooding season in spring, that maybe didn't have any relation into it. I mean, could you just explain a little bit about those water levels in autumn and how they would correlate to potential floodings in spring?
Yeah, so according to the Ottawa River Regulation Planning Board, sharp increases in water levels often bring about questions regarding what conditions the following spring may bring. So But a review of historic river conditions shows that there's usually no direct correlation between high water levels in the fall and high water levels next spring. But we're working with the Otter River Regulation Planning Board to receive those updates, and through the flood forecasting and warning program, we will notify our member municipalities and area residents of any emergency notifications required when needed in regards to flooding.
Wonderful. Taylor Campbell, thank you very much for joining us today. Great to be able to get some of those tips out to people and to ensure that everyone enjoys as many winter activities outdoors as safely as possible. And you and I hopefully will catch up about a variety of other things in the future.
For sure. Thanks, Thomas. Appreciate it.
The snow has been causing all sorts of problems this week following the storm that covered the region in 25 centimetres of it. And with the snow comes a lot of shovelling. As the residents across eastern Ontario cleared off their drives, some in Clarence-Rockland went the extra mile. Taking it upon themselves, a few residents ensured that their fire hydrants were cleared too, gaining the gratitude from the local fire department. However, there was some backlash on social media regarding whose job it is to ensure that these hydrants are cleared of snow. We spoke to the Director of Protective Services, Pfzier, to find out just that.
Director Pfzier, thank you so much for joining us via Zoom today. I got in touch with you because I saw this post on the social media, seeing people that I think the hashtag you used was hydrant heroes, as people were taking the snow and the ice away from these fire hydrants on their streets. Can you talk to us why that kind of initiative is so important? And also, is there not someone within the city whose job there is to do this? Is it an expectation that residents should do it?
So it's absolutely important to do to protect yourselves and your neighbors. Every minute saved cleaning a hydrant for us is a minute gained in attempting to extinguish the fire or rescue or whatever needs to happen during the scene of a fire. So there are people in the municipality that are tasked with cleaning the hydrants. There's crews when they work on the sidewalks, they're always clearing, but there's about 1,000 of them, a little less than that, but that's a lot. And especially when there's a lot of snow that falls in a short period of time, it takes a while to do that. So my recommendation and my ask is take a few minutes, clear your hydrant, your neighbor's hydrant, and then it's done. If something is to happen that day or that night or the next day, then we won't have to worry about it, and then we don't have to dig ourselves out of it when we get there.
So it's more a case of the city will get around and do it, but when there's such a big snowfall, it takes a lot of time, and therefore residents taking this initiative and clearing the ones close to their place means that if something, as you say, happens on that day or on that night, then there is no delay in getting aid to these people.
Well, that's it, and this isn't anything new. Most municipalities ask their residents to clear their fire hydrants. Some may have contractors, but if you think of a bigger city like the city of Ottawa, it's impossible to get to every fire hydrant around the city. So, the thought that it's the municipal's responsibility, well, it's actually everybody's responsibility. The systems are there to help us in times of need. And, it's good exercise to take a few minutes and clear it yourself. So we every year, you'll see municipalities come out and ask their residents to clear their fire hydrants if they can.
And are there any other little things, such as clearing fire hydrants, that people can do to ensure that, especially during the winter and snow time, that it aids in emergency services?
Well, absolutely. So, clearing the hydrants and maybe clearing your neighbor's hydrants and maybe helping those who may not be able physically to take on that task is always a good thing. It's good community spirit. But we'd also ask when hiring contractors who move snow around, we understand that sometimes there's not that much room to pack the snow, to make sure that everybody understands where those hydrants are and not to bury them or not to impede their access. It's not a bad idea to clear access around the home as well, right? To secondary doors. That way, not only for yourselves, the residents, to be able to access properly, but if we ever need to show up, then it's one less thing to worry about, and it just makes it easier for us.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us to clarify that.
Thank you.
In many places around the world, February is marked as Black History Month, and locally, le Réseau de soutien à l'immigration francophone de l'Est de l'Ontario is pushing for all the mayors in the United Counties of Prescott and Russell to formally acknowledge it too. We spoke to Brigitte Duguay-Langlais about how francophone immigrants in the region are accepted and integrated within communities. This interview is in French.
Ben, je vous dirais que ça va de mieux en mieux. Et moi, je veux croire que c'est parce que les gens ne sont pas nécessairement toujours autant exposés que certaines régions du pays, par exemple, où comment je dirais, l'échange culturel, la diversité n'est pas aussi présente, alors c'est un peu inconnu. Mais aussitôt qu'on commence à faire des activités de sensibilisation, moi, je sens un accueil très intéressant parce que les francophones d'origine, de nature au Canada, on est des gens très chaleureux. Et puis, je pense que fondamentalement, on est accueillant. Suffit par contre qu'on brise certains mythes, qu'on brise certains tabous, qu'on informe, qu'on sensibilise, qu'on explique. Et oui, moi, je vois de l'amélioration. Ça fait quand même 7 ans que je suis au réseau, presque 7 ans, et je vois une amélioration. Je vois aussi une amélioration au niveau des employeurs. Je trouve que les employeurs ont beaucoup plus d'ouverture à l'accueil, à l'embauche de personnes nouvelles d'origine de d'autres pays. C'est sûr que la pénurie d'emploi a beaucoup favorisé ce genre de relations-là, mais il y a beaucoup de succès, il y a des beaux succès sur notre territoire à ce niveau-là.
The request to formally acknowledge Black History Month in the municipality of Clarence-Rockland will be voted on at the City Council meeting next month. Road traffic changes were also hot on the agenda at the City Council meeting, as it was determined that McDermott Drive wouldn't need a speed camera following a 7-day speed measuring survey. The report showed that vehicles in the area were not breaking the speed limit, but causing other issues, as Councillor André Lalonde explained.
Monsieur Lalonde.
Merci, M. le maire. J'ai eu la chance de discuter de ceci avec M. Lenhart aujourd'hui, puis également avec quelques-uns des résidents qui sont annexés dans mon quartier. Puis je suis d'accord avec les recommandations du rapport comme tel. On devrait simplement fournir cette information-là à la PPO, étant donné que la problématique n'est pas une question de vitesse. La problématique, ce que j'ai découvert, c'est que les gens ne font pas leurs arrêts dans la subdivision. So people are not doing their stops, the required stops within the subdivision, which is creating frustration. But as I had told the residents that I did have a discussion with, it's basically their own neighbors who are not doing their stops. So I think it's just, this is more of a OPP matter than a city enforcement matter, Mr. Mayor.
Following that, we asked the local OPP for a comment on the matter, and they said that once they are notified by the council, a detachment will formulate a traffic plan and officers will be assigned. They also stated that traffic safety is a priority for the members of the Russell County OPP. So that's it for this week's edition of TVC News. If you want to hear a little bit more from some of the interviews in this or any of our previous programmes, you can watch most of them in a longer format on our YouTube channel. So go over and subscribe. And why don't you act on those New Year's resolutions still? Come on, January's not over, get involved, try something new, as we're constantly on the lookout for volunteer and civilian journalists. So if you're interested, please do let us know. And of course, as usual, if there's a story that you think's more attention here in our region, you can reach me by email at nouvelle with an S at the end at tvc22.ca or by phone at 613 446 6037 extension number 4. Or of course, you can find us on any of our social media channels. Have a lovely weekend, Clarence-Rockland. Stay home, stay safe, and I'll catch you next week. Goodbye.